In anime, the sports genre is fascinating based on the way the story is presenting, typically taking on a more over-the-top shonen approach, but without death. It makes for some of the most unique moments of action with what would otherwise be a boring subject. Still, it rarely meshes with other genres, most notably romance. However, Aokana, Four Rhythms Across the Blue, manages to pull off this fusion with excellent character writing and memorable set pieces. Even though it may have a rocky landing in certain routes, Aokana finds a new perfect home on the Switch.
正式に発足したフライングサーカス部。でも私たちは揃って初心者ばかり。コーチになったマサヤさんはいきなり大変そう。
Aokana, Four Rhythms Across the Blue is the complete package in terms of presentation, with excellent visuals and sound. While the character designs and general aesthetic might be considered generic from what you'd see in an anime, I found that it was done well and the presentation added to the overall quality of work tremendously. The standout design finds its way into the game's UI, which takes a form of a textbook. Furthermore, the audio track title appears on screen when the song changes, which was a really nice touch for me because it had a pretty good soundtrack. These elements give off the impression of a more modern visual novel experience, which may make it more approachable to newcomers. The premise of Aokana contains many layers, each of which are compelling, even if it might not seem all that interesting at first. The story follows Hinata Masaya, a youth prodigy of a futuristic sport known as flying circus, where players use anti-gravity boots to fly around and score points. However, he was traumatized by a loss and refused to play afterwards. One day while running late to school, he meets a transfer student Asuka, who's new to the area and doesn't know about its flying customs. Masaya helps Asuka learn how to fly, and in the process, Asuka pulls him back into the world of flying circus, much to his chagrin, to become the coach of the flying circus club at his school. The story contains slice-of-life moments between the main characters, which make for an enjoyable common route. Sure, you have the generic moments of your main character being called a pervert, but each character comes off as likable, and that becomes more true the further you progress in the story. Aokana makes it clear that Asuka is the main girl, but the rest of the club and supporting cast members are developed well and have depth in ways you wouldn't typically expect from this kind of work. The character development flows naturally as they each have a reason for being in the club. While the story is gripping at times, I found sometimes it was very predictable. Most of the character arcs are overly simplistic, which is a huge letdown given how strong the common route is. This led me to be more attached to the common route, which is surprising because that's rarely the case in a visual novel. I'd personally advise playing through as many of the game's routes as you can though, as many of the gripes I had with the main Asuka's route, primarily that they ignored Masaya's traumas, were addressed in Misaki's routes. This actually made Misaki's route the highlight of the game for me, with the genuine coming-of-age bond between the two characters being compelling and engaging, honestly making the game worth solely playing for this route alone. The sports aspect of Aokana was excellent. Flying Circus had a surprising amount of depth for a fake game, and the discussion about different tactical approaches weaves the narrative about style and the soul of a sport, which is something I'm a real sucker for. However, the tournament arc builds a peak up in the narrative in the middle of the story which motivates the cast, but the execution down the stretch lacks originality. It spends far too much effort building up a villain in a way that almost undermines them, making out to be this superhuman monster. Personally, I had some pet peeves with the main Masaya was handled, mainly that I wish that the root of his traumas were explained early on instead of being only handled well in one of the routes. Also, I think it would have been nice to see him overcome his hardships and play the sport more prominently given his high skills. What makes these pet peeves more frustrating to me personally is the passion and determination he has for the sport. The fact that he's so single-focused on the sport of flying circus and flying in general makes him a likable character even if he's not the most relatable. You probably can't relate to him entirely, but his conflicts are engaging to experience, which makes it disappointing that, as everyone else grows, we never really see him overcome the odds and go back into high performing in the sport. When it comes to the Switch port of Aokana, I believe that you should weigh whether you want convenience over the complete experience. That being, there's some compromises in higher resolution and 18 plus content. The Switch does not include the 1440p CGs and the 18 plus illustrations in its PC counterpart, but it still manages to look great on 720p handheld mode and 1080p dock. Also, while the adult content has been removed, there's still plenty of ecchi scenes encountered throughout the game. Personally, the portability of Aokana on Switch made it an excellent way for me to experience its narrative. Furthermore, I didn't feel like I was missing out of anything of substance over the PC version.
あら、まさやさん、真面目な顔をしてどうしたんですか？一見真面目な顔ですけど、照れを隠している雰囲気もありますね。
Aokana 4 Rhythms Across the Blue is an enjoyable sci-fi fantasy visual novel full of compelling characters and an exceptional presentation. The Switch offers a pleasant way to experience the game through its portability at the cost of a downscaled resolution. While it might miss the landing of the main character's plot and several forgettable themes, there's so much here that'll keep you soaring until the very end. Noisy Pixel is giving Aokana 4 Rhythms Across the Blue on Switch an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This has been Noisy Pixel signing off. If you're interested in more information about this game, please check out the Noisy Pixel website where we have news and a written review. If you're interested in more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified about our future content, and have a great day.